A man is ruined, Marcus Aurelius wrote, not by the events themselves but by his opinions about them. Tonight we expose 7 everyday behaviors eroding those opinions until life itself gets flimsy. Listen straight through, then choose one habit to eliminate before you sleep. When the episode ends, hit like, subscribe, and share your pledge in the comments so the rest of us can hold you to it. Chapter 1. Negative Self-Talk. You wake already narrating defeat. The alarm rings, and before your feet find the floor, the mind unfurls its indictment: too late, too tired, too behind. The mirror isn't just glass, it is a courtroom where you prosecute every pore, wrinkle, and unfinished ambition. You call yourself stupid for misplacing keys, weak for yawning beneath the barbell, awkward because the barista misheard your name. The words feel throwaway, private jokes meant to hurry discomfort off stage, but repetition is a sculptor and the material is your nervous system. Carve a groove deep enough and the brain stops treating failure as event and starts wearing it as identity. Stoic discipline demands the opposite: observe, but do not indict. Your body only missed a rep, your schedule only lost a minute. Judgment is optional, yet negative self-talk dyes perception so thoroughly the mind can no longer tell bruise from bone. People sense the dye faster than perfume. A joke at your own expense may earn a chuckle, but the subtext is neediness masquerading as humility. If he cannot trust himself, how will he shelter me when storms come? Colleagues detect the scent too, preparing for excuses before they anticipate ambition because that is the script you keep rehearsing aloud. Repeat, "I'm terrible with math," and no one will hand you the spreadsheet that could prove otherwise. Repeat, "I'm hopeless at relationships," and invitations for depth evaporate. No one volunteers as co-pilot when the captain disowns the flight. The first counterblow is linguistic. Replace condemnation with observation. Instead of, "I'm such an idiot," say, "That email lacked clarity, next time I'll write," then reread at half speed. It may feel robotic, but phrasing trains the cortex to treat error as malfunction, not moral verdict. Stoic journaling provides nighttime representatives for this muscle. List missteps, diagnose causes, draft corrective actions, then shut the book. Analysis, not self-flagellation. Over weeks, the interior narrator morphs from heckler to technician. Shoulders lift because the weight of self-contempt vacates the spine, and posture casts a new silhouette the world mirrors back as credibility. Reform talk until it meets the accuracy test. Would you label a friend a failure for a typo? Would you call a child worthless for spilling milk? If not, then such language is exaggeration, and exaggeration is a form of lying. Stoics ranked truth as highest virtue. Lying, even to yourself, breaches character. Begin catching hyperbole mid-sentence. Each edit reinstates integrity. The voice that emerges is firmer, quieter, and precise. It corrects without crucifying. Physiology cooperates in this shift. Negative self-talk cues micro-shrugs, shallow breaths, cortisol trickles. Swab dialogue and diaphragm loosens, oxygen climbs, focus steadies. That internal clarity ripples outward, handshake grip strengthens, eye contact lingers, jokes land because timing isn't warped by self-doubt latency. Confidence grows not from inflated slogans but from reduced interference. The narrative static ceases, signal comes through. Insert daily pattern interrupts. When the insult arises, "I look disgusting in this lighting," pause and breathe 4 counts, exhale 6. Ask, "What specific standard did I fail?" Often there is none. Vague self-loathing crumbles under interrogation. If a standard exists, say posture slouched, issue a command instead of a curse, shoulders back, chin level. Action replaces rumination and self-respect collects evidence. Guard your mouth as you would guard diet. Trash words in equals trash mood out. Adopt a policy: silence is better than sarcasm when the target is you. Friends may tease themselves, refrain from echoing. let them witness the new code. They'll adjust dialogue upwards or drift away, leaving you surrounded by speech that nourishes rather than corrodes. Harder trials await, rejection slips, breakups, layoffs. These moments test whether new wiring holds under voltage. Here Stoic framing proves indispensable. Event, she ended the relationship. Judgment, I'm unlovable. Dissect and discard judgment. Replace with experiment, connection failed, data suggests mismatched values, course-correct selection criteria. This reframing is not denial, it honors pain while protecting identity. You are a competent navigator adjusting sails, not a cursed vessel destined to sink. Rebuild further by deliberate success stacking. Complete micro-tasks like making the bed with military corners, hitting hydration quotas, memorizing 10 foreign vocabulary words. Each finished deed supplies a factual rebuttal to any internal prosecutor claiming laziness or incompetence. Over time, the evidence file thickens beyond reasonable doubt. You are capable. The mind, seeing contrary proof, relinquishes old scripts. Remember Socratic irony, knowing what you do not know is strength, but calling yourself names for not knowing is folly. Approach gaps with curiosity, I haven't trained this skill yet. Invite learning, I'm terrible at everything, slams the classroom door. The universe has no shortage of teachers. They reveal themselves when the student stops shouting self-abuse long enough to listen. Ultimately, negative self-talk is theft of time, energy, influence. Every insult drains voltage from the circuit powering purpose. Stop the leak and watch it returns, illuminating pathways once shrouded by your own shadow. You discover others weren't withholding respect, they were waiting for you to issue the cue that you respect yourself. That cue is the absence of self-destruction in daily speech. So tomorrow, greet the mirror not with prosecutorial glare but with audit, observe, adjust, proceed. Speak as though your words are seedlings in the soil of identity, because they are. Pull the weeds, plant with care, and watch confidence sprout like resilient grass reclaiming concrete once toxic runoff ends. When silence is preferable to sabotage and precision replaces poison, you'll notice the world recalibrating, offering challenges sized for someone no longer at war with his own reflection. Chapter 2: Lack of Grooming Habits. Your beard line ambles past the jaw like an untended hedge, fingernails still exhibit Saturday's grime, and breath carries the ghost of yesterday's espresso. These seem like minor lapses, but together they write a silent indictment: neglect. And neglect, in Stoic terms, is more than untidiness, it is a breach of stewardship. The Stoics viewed the body as a workshop for virtue, a set of instruments through which reason and character enact their duties in the world. Allow rust on the tools, and every project slows, your clarity of speech, your confidence in a handshake, your capacity to inspire trust. Poor grooming isn't superficial, it is symptomatic. If you won't polish what you meet in the mirror each dawn, how reliably will you maintain promises no one audits? A woman noting stubble flakes on your collar imagines parallel flakes inside future life together, cabinets unorganized, bills half paid, intimacy treated as afterthought. Colleagues draw lines between frayed cuffs and potential shortcuts in spreadsheets. Subconscious math happens fast, visible disorder predicts hidden corners you haven't swept. The antidote is ritual, not luxury. Grooming is best framed as liturgy rather than pampering. Pick a weekday, say, Sunday evening, to trim beard edges or shave clean, matching the rhythm you already use for changing bedsheets, so habit piggybacks habit. Keep clippers sharp, a ragged blade suggests improvisation, not intention. Fingernails? 10 minutes on Wednesday with proper file and cuticle oil, a micro-signal of precision. Floss nightly because the stubborn thread of habit is stronger than sporadic blasts of minty gum. Consistency whispers self-respect more convincingly than weekend mouthwash marathons. Launder shirts before odor so much as whispers. Scent should never need to negotiate forgiveness for delayed chores. Iron garments before wrinkles argue your standards downward. The gesture isn't about fashion show polish. Many Stoics wore plain tunics. It's about order. Creases you press into cotton presses, the boundaries you press into schedule and budget. Scent, meanwhile, functions like punctuation in prose, brief, clarifying, never a synthetic paragraph begging to be read. 2 sprays of a clean cedar or vetiver cologne after skin is moisturized tells those near you, I finish the details. These micro-acts choreograph reliability. They send subtle memos to potential partners and collaborators. Anything placed in this man's radius gains altitude. Drops of aftershave translate into leadership data. If he can keep his neckline crisp during deadlines, he can likely keep the project timeline crisp too. It isn't about aesthetics divorced from substance. It's about the promise aesthetic discipline implies. Your groomed state becomes the visible tip of an iceberg whose unseen mass is order. Emails answered, workouts logged, thank you note sent. There is also a psychological dividend. The moment you align that collar or smooth that shoe leather, posture alters. Mirror neurons in your own brain interpret the image as readiness, flipping a biochemical switch from idle to intentional. Mood lifts because entropy has been repelled, a small territory of chaos surrendered to control. Over weeks this lifts the floor of self-esteem. The quiet background radiation of how you treat yourself turns into ambient confidence others detect before you speak. Importantly, grooming transforms from vanity into covenant. I respect my vessel, therefore I can be trusted with anything placed inside its orbit. The message is not look at me but rely on me. A well-kept beard line tells a future child, albeit unconsciously, that their breakfast will appear on time. Polished shoes assure an investor that follow-through won't trail mud into quarterly reports. Straight posture is a lighthouse for friends scanning the room for calm harbor. None of this demands luxury brands or endless bathroom regimes. Stoic grooming is minimal but meticulous, few products, consistent application. A boar bristle brush over beard, unscented moisturizer, high-quality soap, nails maintained, hair trimmed on schedule. The emphasis is repetition, not novelty, principle, not trend. Just as Stoics review daily choices each night, you review daily appearance each morning to ensure outward presentation remains a faithful ambassador of inward discipline. If all this sounds painstaking, remember the alternative cost, opportunity lost to first impressions that quietly closed doors you never knew existed. Meetings where decision-makers clocked chaos in your collar before hearing brilliance in your pitch. Dates where curiosity dimmed under subconscious concern about hygiene compatibility. You need never know the exact moment neglect sabotaged you, but you can ensure grooming never volunteers for that role. Adopt one small ritual tonight. Clean your shoes and set them by the door. Tomorrow, as leather catches morning light, let it remind you to catch the day with equal polish. Next week add one upgraded tool, sharp trimmer, glass nail file, quality toothbrush. Habits compound like interest. Each stroke of care deposits reliability into a ledger others can't see but always sense. Ultimately, grooming is a daily referendum on dignity. Seneca urged his students to dress plainly yet neatly as proof they belonged neither to sloth nor vanity. Stand in that middle path. Present yourself not as a mannequin nor a slogger but as a steward of body, of time, of promises. When you do, something subtle yet seismic happens, conversations deepen faster, respect arises earlier, and the world, seeing you manage the small, will entrust you with the large. Grooming is the silent handshake that precedes the spoken one. Strengthen it until its grip becomes unmistakable. Chapter 3. Revving your engine of reckless driving. You roar off the curb, exhaust popping like fireworks, believing the neighborhood should salute your arrival. You weave through side streets to feel the chassis shiver, convinced the burst of acceleration affirms your dominance. The passenger seat tells another story. Her limbic brain registers threat before her prefrontal cortex processes conversation. Heart rate spikes, fingers clutch door handle, pupils dilate in the same prehistoric reflex that scanned grasslands for predators. Attraction shrinks to the size of a pulse. It's no longer romance, it's survival calculus. How soon until the next blind corner? How many inches until the bumper kisses disaster? Every unnecessary rev is insecurity disguised as horsepower. It says, pay attention to me because I'm afraid silence might prove I'm ordinary. Stoic philosophy differentiates between courage and display. Courage engages danger when purpose demands, rushing to the hospital, pulling a stranger from icy water, merging decisively to avoid a crash. Display courts danger for applause, taxing the nerves of everyone nearby. Marcus Aurelius commanded armies yet wrote that true power is mastery over impulse. Slamming a throttle to impress strangers would have struck him as slavery to crowd opinion. Dial back the RPM and practice a subtler art, quiet mastery. Smooth acceleration hints at measured ambition rather than reckless appetite. Predictive braking demonstrates foresight. You noticed the pedestrian long before the crosswalk light flashed. Steady merging reveals respect for shared roads, an understanding that freedom extends only to the edge of someone else's safety. These driving habits foreshadow relationship style. A woman watching you thread traffic with calm precision imagines how you'll navigate family crises. If you can't keep a 2-ton machine from courting chaos, how will you steer a mortgage, a feverish child, an aging parent? Replace revving with conversation. Let her measure your velocity through ideas, your horsepower through humor that lands without volume, your edge through plans that telescope years, entrepreneurial blueprints, fitness milestones, service goals. This transfer of thrill from engine noise to intellectual spark builds trust, and trust, ironically, multiplies excitement. She relaxes into the seat, neural alarm systems powering down, making space for curiosity. What else does he command so calmly? Attention blossoms where anxiety once lived. The repertoire of restraint extends beyond dates. Colleagues notice you navigate deadlines with the same composed timing, never slamming projects from zero to redline just to hear the corporate engine scream. Friends see you exit parties at reasonable hours rather than burning rubber into dawn. Your car becomes an emblem, not of brute power, but of integrated power, horsepower reconciled with horsepower of mind. The V8 under the hood is silent proof, not loud plea. Practice begins with intention. Next, ignition. Imagine every input broadcast to passengers as a character statement. Jerk equals impatience, rev equals insecurity, smooth equals confidence. Use cruise control on long stretches to teach the foot patience. In city grids, treat each yellow light as a chance to practice acceptance rather than conquest. When temptation to launch rears up at a green, ask, does this serve the mission? 99 times out of 100, the mission is simply arriving intact, unruffled, and respected. What you relinquish in adrenaline you gain in authority. Police notice fewer exhibitionists, insurance premiums dip, tires last longer, practical dividends of discipline. More importantly, the habit conditions nervous pathways toward broader life restraint. The same measured pressure you apply to the pedal trains the tongue not to accelerate into sarcasm, the fist not to clench at provocation, the budget not to redline on whims. Stoic courage, after all, is constancy in rightful purpose, not momentary flourish. When calm competence replaces combustion theater, the soundtrack of the ride changes. Instead of exhaust crackle, there's conversation depth. Instead of screeching turns, there's comfortable silence. And soon you discover the thrill you thought resided in speed now resides in control, the stable hum beneath the hood mirroring the steady quiet in your chest. She senses it too, leaning back as city lights slide by, knowing the only risk tonight is falling deeper into dialogue uninterrupted by fear. In that space, attraction doesn't just survive, it accelerates, on trust, not tachometers. Chapter 4. No chivalry on dates. The evening begins to sour the moment you let the restaurant door swing shut behind you, forcing her to catch its edge with manicured fingers. You stride the inner line of the sidewalk, unaware she is dodging puddle spray from cars. When the bill arrives, you stare at it like an unsolved equation, weighing modern etiquette against wallet discomfort while she studies the ceiling and feels second-hand awkwardness bloom. None of these micro-moments involves raised voices or cruel words, yet each one whispers a verdict louder than language: he's careless. Modern partnership may be built on equality, but equality never cancelled consideration. Stoic philosophy praised eucrasia, a harmonious blend of strength and gentleness. Muscles without manners are blunt instruments, sensitivity without initiative falters when adversity calls. Chivalry is not archaic theatre, it is daily proof you can wield both aspects. Think of it as micro-leadership. Leadership begins with awareness, noticing her heels sink into cobblestones and adjusting pace, stepping curbside, not to advertise dominance, but to buffer her from rogue cyclists and street splash, easing conversation through crowded spaces, guiding her with a light touch on the small of the back only when welcome. These subtleties signal I monitor the environment so you can relax. Paying the first date tab is not a purchase order for affection. It is underwriting an evening you proposed, ensuring the atmosphere you selected carries no financial friction. If she insists on splitting, accept graciously and add a generous tip. Your surplus mindset remains evident. The cost difference is negligible, but the message of capability is priceless. She reads your gestures as predictive data. A man hesitant to cover coffee may hesitate over bigger provisions, helping her move apartments, supporting her dream pivot, or covering dinner when she's between paychecks. Chivalry extends beyond physical logistics. When the night ends, you do not vanish into the algorithmic void. You text to confirm she reached home safely, not because you doubt her competence, but because you value her well-being. You follow with a specific proposal: let's try the jazz bar on 8th Friday at 7, instead of we should hang out sometime. Vagueness breeds doubt, precision breeds anticipation. The Stoics wrote that destiny favors the prepared. In dating, anticipation favors the decisive. Courtesy also means temporal respect. You arrive 5 minutes early, allowing her the dignity of not waiting alone. You silence notifications so her words are not in competition with glowing rectangles. You listen without rehearsing rebuttals, ask follow-up questions that show you hold details, and remember them in future plans. When she mentions her preference for a certain wine, weeks later you produce it in a picnic basket. That recall is not performative, it's archival evidence of attention, and attention is the currency from which intimacy compounds. These habits cost minutes and minor dollars, yet yield an aura that money alone cannot purchase: credibility. She may have dated men funnier, taller, or richer, but consistency of consideration is rarer than all three qualities combined. Neglect it and everything else, wit, physique, ambition, registers as noise playing over the static of self-absorption. Chivalry is, at its root, disciplined kindness. It trains you to scan for another's comfort the way a seasoned trader scans markets, automatically, incessantly. Over time, that practice bleeds into broader life. You hold elevator doors for strangers, help parents hoist strollers, tip service staff better than the norm. Not because eyes are on you, but because character officiates unseen moments. People feel this ambient respect and repay it with trust. Colleagues volunteer for your projects, friends invest in your ventures, and the woman beside you begins to imagine how your quiet vigilance would translate to fatherhood, crisis navigation, long-term partnership. So study her stride in relation to the street. Note how restaurant acoustics sabotage shy voices and ask for a quieter booth. Pay the bill smoothly, confirm her safety, and schedule the sequel with conviction. These are not outdated courtship rituals, they are living ceremonies of respect. and respect is desire's deepest root. Tend to it, and the branches of romance grow naturally, secure, resilient, and unburdened by doubt. Chapter 5. Not being direct, too agreeable. You nod dutifully through opinions you quietly reject, answer every invitation with whatever you like, and force a laugh at jokes that flatten your spirit. This chronic agreeableness looks like politeness, but it's usually a mask sewn from fear of friction. And masks, by design, suffocate skin beneath. Your preference, unexpressed, doesn't disappear, it ferments into resentment. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace, but you're only postponing conflict until it erupts at triple strength, triggered by something trivial: wrong lettuce on a sandwich, a movie you didn't choose, a tone you misinterpret because honesty died of neglect. Stoic practice champions truth spoken without malice. Directness is not aggression, it is clarity, the pure line between intention and expression. Consider a date suggesting Thai. You're craving Mexican. Instead of placid assent, you say, "Thai sounds great, tonight I'm leaning Mexican, shall we compromise on fusion?" In that moment, two truths surface: you know your own desire, and you're willing to negotiate rather than capitulate. Such clarity calms nerves. People trust frames, not fog. Boardrooms echo the same principle. Decisive statements magnetize action, vague consensus drifts into follow-up emails nobody opens. Start retraining with micro-assertions. Pick the movie before she asks. State a boundary on texting during work hours instead of ghosting then apologizing. Request a quieter table when the restaurant speaker blares, rather than tolerating noise you'll later blame for the lack of connection. Each honest preference voiced outlines the contour of your character so others can align authentically instead of guessing. Authentic disagreement respects her capacity to engage as an equal. Yes-manship infantilizes both sides and reduces you to caricatures, one perpetually appeasing, one perpetually dictating. Directness also protects intimacy. When you bottle small dislikes, her habit of scrolling mid-conversation, your discomfort with last-minute plan swaps, silent seeds annoyance. Eventually annoyance blooms into cold distance she can feel but not diagnose. If you had named the issue early, she might have adjusted gladly. By the time resentment surfaces, the soil is poisoned. The Stoic tells the truth early not only to honor reality but to prevent its distortion. Women translate decisive language into emotional security. A partner who chooses dessert can choose a daycare, a mortgage plan, a strategy when complexity escalates. She doesn't need you infallible, she needs you legible. Mystery is seductive only when it cloaks adventure, not when it clouds basic preferences. When you offer clear stances, politely, flexibly, you free her from guessing games that exhaust attraction. She can disagree robustly because she knows the target. She can support fiercely because she sees where you're heading. If conflict scares you, remember that disagreement isn't a storm to survive but weather to navigate. Sailors learn wind patterns, articulate men learn conversational currents. Directness turns arguments into collaborative mapping, two minds charting where values overlap or diverge. Each resolved tension forges stronger alloys of understanding. And if a preference incompatibility proves fundamental, clarity speeds the inevitable goodbye, saving both parties from slow burns that char affection to ash. Daily practice cements progress. At the cafe, correct the barista when they mispronounce your name instead of chuckling and accepting the wrong label. Decline weekend plans that derail your priorities rather than ghosting and inventing excuses Monday morning. Voice creative criticism in meetings with solutions, not sabotage. Each act trains your nervous system to tolerate the brief spike of vulnerability that follows honesty. Over time, that spike dulls. Eventually you crave the clean feel of being known over the sticky comfort of accommodation. Directness, at its core, is self-respect speaking through the body. Shoulders square, voice steady, eyes honest. The world responds in kind, some will bristle, Others will applaud, but you will never again wonder whether you betrayed yourself for temporary ease. And that unmistakable self-alignment radiates, drawing collaborators, friends, and lovers who prefer the firm handshake of reality to the soft clutch of pretense. Chapter 6. Oversharing, Trauma Dumping. The calamari hasn't cooled and you've already unloaded the family bankruptcy, the ex-fiance's affair, your father's drinking, and late-night terrors about dying alone. Vulnerability is currency, but like currency, value depends on context, timing, and consent. Spend it too fast or force it into unwilling hands, and what might have built connection becomes emotional inflation. Stoic resilience teaches that fragile narratives are fine crystal, they must be placed in containers sturdy enough to hold them. Early oversharing attempts to smuggle intimacy through the back door, bypassing the slow accreditation of shared experience. It demands empathy labor from someone who never signed a contract. She may nod kindly, believing politeness is her only option, yet inside she's bracing against a surge of pain she never agreed to host. Balance begins with recognizing the impulse. Trauma dumping usually sprouts from unprocessed wounds begging for witness. The first safeguard is interior. Give those wounds a structured arena before they bleed onto new relationships. Therapy, journaling, meditation, long walks narrated into a voice memo, any ritual that turns raw chaos into coherent story. By processing privately, you convert screams into sentences, making them shareable in smaller, digestible portions rather than tidal waves. Next comes the practice of graduated disclosure. Imagine intimacy as a staircase, not an elevator. On step 1 you exchange lighter anecdotes, mischief in college, quirky family traditions, mild frustrations. You observe her comfort level. Does she reciprocate? Does she ask layered follow-ups or pivot quickly? Only when curiosity flows both directions do you ascend to deeper material, pivotal setbacks, formative heartbreaks, existential doubts. At each landing, pause. Let silence test structural integrity. If she seems engaged, makes eye contact, mirrors posture, offers her own parallel, move on. If her gaze drifts or answers shorten, respect that cue and steer back to safer ground. Message sent, you value her autonomy more than your catharsis. Reciprocation is non-negotiable. Balanced emotional exchange prevents the dynamic from morphing into one-sided counseling. If she reveals a vulnerable memory, match her depth but not necessarily her topic. She mentions losing direction after college, you share a career misstep, not a childhood trauma montage. Mirrored vulnerability builds symmetrical trust, a necessary girding for deeper revelations down the line. Delivery matters as much as content. Speak from scar, not scab. Scars indicate healing, scabs split open under gentle inquiry. When you recount difficult chapters, communicate resolution. That season was brutal, but therapy reframed it. Instead of I still wake up enraged. She hears a man who confronts darkness without relocating her into it. Tone frames experience as reference, not residence. You've lived there, you're not asking her to move in. Timing extends beyond first dates. Even in established relationships, unbuffered trauma monologues can ambush a partner. The Stoics practiced evening reflection alone, writing grievances to exhaust their sting before engaging others. Maintain personal decompression rituals so that when you do share heavy material, it's purposeful, not a dam break of accumulated tension. Invite consent. I had a rough call with my brother tonight. Do you have space to hear about it? A simple question honors her capacity and establishes a safety perimeter for both. Healthy intimacy thrives on ebb and flow, humor, curiosity, flirting, philosophy, quiet co-presence. Oversharing skews the rhythm toward perpetual heaviness, casting you as broken artifact awaiting repair. Women may admire your honesty yet eventually feel more nurse than partner. Worse, trauma dumping can weaponize pity into premature bonding that collapses under real compatibility tests. What feels like closeness forged in the forge of shared tears often shatters when daily realities demand lighter sparks, playfulness, shared goals, ordinary joy. Safeguarding both stories, yours and hers, signals mastery over past and present. You prove you can carry your own burdens, which implies you won't drop them on her doorstep unannounced. You show restraint, indicating future arguments will feature measured disclosure rather than emotional spill. She relaxes, trusts, and willingly descends with you into more profound chambers of life, knowing you can both find the exit if shadows gather too thick. Ultimately, Stoic vulnerability distills to two words: chosen exposure. Reveal angles of your soul because you intend to build, not because you can't contain the pressure. Let each disclosure emerge like wine poured into a compatible glass, enhancing flavor, never overflowing. Then you stand not as a man seeking rescue, but as one inviting partnership in examining treasures and wounds together, two steady hands on the same lantern, lighting a path you're both ready to walk. Chapter 7. Talking about other women. You think dropping her name will sharpen your edge. You reference the ex who still texts you sometimes, or casually mention the girl at the gym who's clearly been checking you out. You brag about options. You float veiled references to other dates, hoping she'll lean in with curiosity or jealousy. But what you're actually doing is detonating the fragile foundation of early attraction. What you call subtle strategy she interprets as insecurity in disguise. Instead of pulling her closer, you trigger emotional distance. And once respect takes a hit, desire follows it out the door. Stoic wisdom doesn't traffic in games, it lives in self-possession. A man who knows his value has no interest in comparative theater. He doesn't use one woman's attention to validate himself to another. He doesn't turn the table into a scoreboard or ask his present companion to compete with ghosts from his past. Instead, he honors the people who've played a role in his life, without weaponizing their memory. If past relationships come up, and eventually they will, he speaks with balance. He references the growth, the lessons, even the affection, but with no lingering scent of regret or boast. He doesn't frame exes as conquests or disasters, he frames them as closed chapters written in ink, not pencil. This doesn't mean you hide your history. Hiding is fear. Stoic men don't hide, they curate. They offer the truth, minus the performance. When speaking of former partners, they speak plainly. We loved each other, but we wanted different futures. We helped each other grow, but we grew in different directions. No passive digs. No breadcrumbs of unresolved longing. No phonable claims that invite follow-up questions. The conversation moves forward, not in circles. What about female friends or colleagues? The same code applies. You don't over-explain or conceal. Instead, you signal boundaries. You share mutual respect, platonic loyalty, and clear emotional borders. You speak well of them without flirting through proxy. The woman sitting across from you feels no need to interrogate or decode. Why? Because she doesn't sense game, she senses groundedness. And groundedness, especially in a man with options, breeds trust. And where trust lives, attraction has a chance to deepen beyond surface spark. Gains built on jealousy may ignite early intensity, but they corrode long-term chemistry. A woman who's wise and emotionally healthy doesn't want to win you through competition with others. She wants to feel chosen through clarity. When she detects you're broadcasting your desirability for validation, she withdraws, sometimes silently, sometimes with finality. Jealousy-based tactics are the refuge of men who doubt they can hold attention by standing still. Stoicism teaches the opposite: remain rooted and let the storm orbit you. Your attention is the rarest thing you possess. When you scatter it, you cheapen it. When you ration it carefully, focusing on the woman in front of you, listening intently, giving space for her to unfold, you show that your presence is scarce by design, not by manipulation. There is no need to prove other people want you. She can feel that you're desirable by the way you carry yourself, by your boundaries, your eye contact, your discipline, and your absence of desperation. That is enough. Whether you walk the path of monogamy, casual dating, or openness, your standard must be the same: transparency. Not just about your actions, but your motives. Stoic masculinity rests on clean intention. If you're seeing multiple women, be honest without drama. If you're serious about one person, don't sprinkle references to other girls in hopes of leverage. The trust you earn from honesty is a deeper aphrodisiac than any calculated ambiguity. More than anything, women want to know that the man they're sharing space with isn't haunted by emotional ghosts or still trying to validate his worth through romantic metrics. When you show that your past is integrated, your present is intentional, and your attention is unscattered, she relaxes. Not because you've earned her, no man earns a woman, but because you've made the space feel safe enough for something real to emerge. So stop talking about other women like notches, tools, tests, or trophies. You're not in competition. You're in cultivation. If you're still leaning on your romantic history to convince someone to like you now, you haven't built enough in your present to be compelling on your own. Build that. Speak from that. And when your attention becomes the rarest thing in the room, clean, directed, non-performative, she will know. Not because you said so, but because everything in your presence will quietly confirm it. Epictetus reminded his students, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. You now know 7 habits that gnaw at reputation, energy, and peace. Don't binge-watch self-help, delete one behavior tonight. Unfollow the account that feeds your envy, schedule tomorrow's workout before bed, or swap the next complaint for a concrete request. Tiny executions prove bigger intentions. Drop a comment naming the habit you're cutting so this community can sharpen you, hit like if the mirror's done productively, and subscribe for next week's Stoic upgrade. Every change you lock in turns philosophy from bookshelf ornament into living muscle. Cut the rot, keep the roots, and meet me back here stronger.